Good morning. Thank you for joining us and welcome to a morning in London. But of course, other time zones are available for our international audience. So it's a great pleasure for you to join us in the midst of our rather hectic e-commerce world review. This webinar, we're looking at the beauty and cosmetics sector report that once again has been edited by our wonderful executive editor, Emma Herod. And I'm very pleased to say that Emma is joining us along with two friends from Telium and from Asendia, just to pull out some highlights of an incredibly in-depth report. So there's no way that we could summarize these 40 pages of facts, research, analysis. So I would recommend, of course, that you go and check out the report itself. But what has struck Emma and the panelists as worthy of just pulling out to discuss with you for the next half an hour. So Emma's going to take us through it. But before we dive in, do remember that questions are amazing. We would love to get your thoughts and questions, either for things we can cover now in conversation, or more importantly, that we can feed into the ongoing research, which you won't be surprised to know has already started for the 2022 report. So drop us any questions you have to research@retailx.net and we'll get back to you. Secondly, you're probably thinking, this is going to be so much fun. I feel selfish enjoying it on my own. Fear not. Once we've finished, we'll send you the link so you can replay this with family, friends, colleagues as many times as you wish and share it more broadly, and the much loved link to the report itself. Anyway, I've given you a chance to look at the pictures of our panelists, but I think it's time to uncloak and reveal our panelists themselves in the flesh. Maria, Emma, Laura, welcome to the studio. So let's dive in. Tell us a bit about who you are and a bit about your company as well. So we'll kick off with you, Maria, then Laura, and then Emma. So welcome. Maria, who are you? Who is Asendia? Do tell.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me. My name is Maria Gomez. I'm the manager of business development and strategy for Asendia Spain. Asendia is a company that is trying to empower businesses to grow across borders. With our offer, there is a range of international e-commerce and mail delivery services. We were launched in 2012 by La Poste and Swiss Post, and we are operating across the world. So that's it.
Brilliant. Well, Maria, welcome. And I should say that we work with Asendia on a very large number of our reports and have done for many years. So thank you for that, and great to have you on the webinar. Laura, welcome. Tell everyone
Thanks,
who
Ian.
you are and a bit about Telium.
My name is Laura McHenry. I'm Vice President of Marketing in EMEA for Telium. And Telium work with brands to help them tie their customer data together in a way that then allows them to communicate more effectively with greater relevance, greater resonance to their consumers, and get better interactions. And the heart of our technology is a customer data platform, and that ingests data from any touch point you can think of, behavioral, transactional, adds additional insight to it, makes it available in real time for brands to then use through whatever channel, whatever technology they want to send out communications that are actually going to work.
Great, that's a key.
In a nutshell.
Laura, it's lovely to have you on the camera for once, because you do so much of the work with us behind the scenes. It's great to get you on the webinar at last. And speaking about doing all of the work behind the scenes often, Emma, lovely to see you today. Just introduce yourself for everyone.
Good morning. I'm Emma Herod. I'm Executive Editor at Internet Retailing and RetailX, author of this report and, as Ian says, many others, having been with Internet Retailing since 2006.
So, Emma, you were our first person on board, which is incredible. So, Yeah, welcome. And I should also point out that one of your headline reports and areas of focus is, of course, sustainability as well. So I'm sure we'll touch on that a bit later. Anyway, Emma, I am now going to move you to the in-charge position and hand over for you to take us through the highlights that you want to share with us from this incredible report. Anyway, I'm standing by, so tell me as and when you want to move, but over to you for now.
Okay, thanks, Ian. It's interesting having a look at how the beauty and cosmetics industry has changed over the past year since we brought out the previous report. Because obviously a year ago was just at the start of the pandemic, and retailers over the year have evolved their digital offerings very much to cope with different situations in different countries as things have developed. Obviously, the industry is made up with a number of large corporations who are either completely focused on the beauty and cosmetics sector, or they combine that within a wider portfolio of consumer brands. There's also the growing number of pure plays, which are eating into the traditional sales model, which has predominantly been store-based concessions. So as you can see from the chart, the amount of traffic that each of them have received over the past few months. Then, of course, as I mentioned, the impact of COVID. So if we move on to the next one, thanks, Ian. It's affected the whole of the beauty and cosmetics sector, as it has all retail industries. Bricks and mortar stores obviously having to close in different areas, and the demand has shifted online. As you can see from Sephora, before the pandemic, the majority of their sales were through stores. The middle of the year, with stores closing, of course, all the traffic moved online. And then even at the end of 2020, with stores reopening, many of their sales were still happening through digital channels rather than footfall resuming. And people are expecting it to stay that way, even as people return to stores in different markets.
It's interesting, so that online will still have a major place, but it isn't as if the whole world has stayed online. The customer is still telling us that they want to have a balance between stores and online, even though that balance is, currently in the favour of the digital channel. So it's quite interesting to see that even with the pandemic, it's coming back to a balance of channels, by now.
Yeah, very much so, because even sort of during the main parts of the pandemic, the growth in digital sales, if you look at the retailers and the brands' financial results for the year, their digital sales increased by about 50% plus. And that's not uncommon across them. At L'Oreal, one of the major players in the market, their digital channels now account for more than a quarter of group sales. And you can see the difference amongst the different companies as well, in that how much they had invested in digital pre-pandemic and the results they had post-pandemic. So online investment has had to try and catch up very much with the channel acceleration. We've seen lots of things that were being tested or and trialled within the sector, and of course other sectors coming to fruition in the last 12 months. Augmented reality for example, is now commonplace across the retailer and brand websites and on their social channels as well, like the slide here, L'Oreal Paris virtual cosmetics, where it will not only put the cosmetics on your image, it will hold them there while you're on a Zoom call. And I will say it's a fun one to go and play with for all members of the family.
But again, it's interesting if we think about the time and space where COVID hit, which is when mobile phones are at the height of their power, with good bandwidth, augmented reality in the chips, AI in the cloud, the commerce platform in mobile that we haven't had until very recently. So it's as if, it's terrible to think that COVID happened, but in terms of, at which decade in our lives were we most able to cope with COVID, the ability of the technology, as you said, the investment, it was as if it was ready to take its place as a solution rather than being simply a marketing or technology gimmick. So for me, looking at this, what's been incredible is that all of these systems work. It hasn't been apologising, oh, look, they're trying, etc. The fundamental working nature of everything we see, for an old technologist that's used to things breaking for 3 years till they hold together, it has been an incredible achievement that so much has rolled out so effectively with so little grief across so many platforms. Am I the only person that thinks this is amazing, or are you going to tell me we've been working this for years and you're only just knowing? I mean, Laura, the sheer data flowing in and out of this, the systems need to be connected. Is this thanks to you? And have you been doing this?
Personally, yes. But I think it's exactly what Emma said. The brands we saw that were already priming themselves to move forward digitally, we're in a good position to keep building on this. It's not like the pandemic hit and people went, oh, augmented reality. Don't know. Anybody got any ideas? These things were already in progress and already in play, and they were just accelerated. Mother is the necessity of invention, right? And I think one of the things we really have seen is this move back to in-store for very specific product groups. It's very hard for people to want to buy a new foundation online or buy a new piece of skincare that they've not tried, they've not talked to somebody about online. So in-store's always going to have a place. And I think it's important to acknowledge that too. And I think the multiple channels that we're seeing is incredibly important. Customers who interact more, spend more. And offering these wealth of channels to your customers and ways for them to meaningfully interact with you. We should caveat that. We're not talking about random spamming people. Meaningfully interact with you across channels are likely to spend an average of 10% more online at your store than people who are only talking to you through one channel. So making these available and making these pertinent is just good business sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's very good. I mean, Emma, I was thinking of the work you did on the grocery innovation stuff back in the dim, distant past of March. And I remember we were talking about the case studies and the incredible modesty. So we had all these amazing grocers who had managed to scale enormously overnight and sustain peak activity for 60 days. And when we said, what have you done? They said, oh, nothing, it's just normal. And the modesty was there, but yet when we talked to them more, you could see they had the habit of investment. This is what they do, is we just prepare, we innovate, we make it work. It was quite motivating, I must say.
And it's amazing that everyone has done this while not working together from offices.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, CredoLive, you'd singled out as an example, Emma.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. One, because they're a sustainability brand, very much sort of pushing and innovating on the clean beauty area. But also they introduced CredoLive as a way of consumers at home still being able to talk to the store staff, even though the stores were closed. You go, okay, yeah, fair enough. That's what lots of retailers were doing. But as their stores reopen, they've only got 14 shops across the US anyway. So a lot of people would have had or have a long way to travel to get to one of their shops. But by introducing this, they can then continue the interaction with people that do come into the shops once they have left. So they're actually turning the omni-channel journey the other way as well. So rather than digital to store, it's the store visitors to digital. So they can follow up and say, oh, you bought this foundation while you were in the shop. How are you getting on with it? And continuing that conversation 2 days after the purchase and things like that. And, so they found that very effective.
Again, this is a part of, I think, time and place working together. So, over the pandemic, we're now so used to FaceTiming loved ones, being on Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, the video mediated interface. But I'm just going to do a little plug for our China webinar, which I think is on Friday. So correct me if I'm wrong, but we are speaking there with Lee from DR2 in China, and he's sharing with us some of the insights they have for live streaming. So this is, if you like, a logical next step where brands like Credo are not just using the one-on-one, but their store assistants and experts are just like mini TV personalities for those who remember TV, but it's streaming personalities. So again, we're seeing the technology come together to really make that connection between the brand and the brand advocates / customers in, a very, I don't use the word seamless, I just did, but it's coming true after many years of talking about it. So a really good point here. And Laura, when we were talking earlier on, you were mentioning increase in spending as a result of this engagement. So I think you mentioned 10%. Is that a normal amount that you're seeing with your clients?
Yeah, I mean, this is actually from the Harvard Business Review report on this. And the more channels people engage with, exponentially then increases the average order value and the more they're likely to spend with your brand in one go. More than that, they're also far more likely, let's check my stat, 23% more likely to repeat purchase, to come back. So these multiple touch points, these multiple channels, it's incredibly important. And to pick up on a point that Emma made, getting people back in store after what's been going on for the past 12 months. If I've spent an awful lot with you online, I want that to be acknowledged when I'm in the store. I don't want to be treated like another customer. And only by tying all of this data together can I actually recognize that I've blown $1,000 with you in the last 2 months on skincare products, and maybe you want to be particularly nice to me. Just don't. Nobody find the credit card receipts.
No. But you mentioned there a credit card receipt. We have multiple cards, a store. So there are multiple stores I could visit, and I've now got my mobile device, my laptop, and other devices. So tying these 6 transaction fingerprints together into a single human being called Laura is very much an important and necessary challenge now. So getting that data view sounds like it's an integral part of being able to provide a service and really know the customer.
It's absolutely pivotal. People want to feel recognized. People want to feel communicated to as a human from a human, not as generic marketing blah machine to I hope you'll buy something customer. And the only way we do that is by knowing more and more, and not in an intrusive, stalky way. That's not what I'm getting to before people complain. But I'm talking about looking at behavioral insight. I'm looking at how they're browsing, understanding what their interaction with the augmented reality tool is telling you. What are they thinking about? What are they looking at? How can you support them and give them more information to make better decisions? It's really, really important if we want to really sticky together those customers to our brand.
Lovely. I love that human to human thing. Emma, back to you.
Social media, going back to digital, this is obviously sort of a huge marketing channel for beauty and cosmetics. Ian, you mentioned live streaming and the China webinar. This is something that is now starting to emerge into other geographic markets as well. L'Oreal, big investment into Republica, which is a US-grown live streaming platform. And in the beauty and cosmetics report, there is a nice case study with Amala Beauty into how they have ventured into live streaming, but that is within the Chinese market. So it's something that we are going to see as a big trend, I think, going forward within this sector. Social influence, Instagram, obviously, is the main one there. And it's still growing. 500 million people joined a social media platform in 2020.
Yes, you're right. And social media is and live streaming specifically is, I think, is a very valuable opportunity to get a lot of engagement without having to make large investments. So I think it's a good opportunity for retailers. Yeah.
Yes, and I think where you're, one of the challenges we have, and I'm going to make a link now to the personalization webinar we have as well, is that as you have to be, as Laura said, human to human, we have to spread ourselves quite thinly. So looking at the personalization systems that can help you go somewhere between that one size fits all down to that super overly individualized, this is creepy level, somewhere in between.
Creepy level.
It's we need some systems to help us be present and real in all of these channels. So again, the combination of data is important, but also having the right content and making sure that our staff can also be storytellers as well as sales closers. It's another thing, Emma, as we keep saying, that frontline staff in retail these days really are superheroes because they have to do everything well across the board. And Emma, with these people joining social channels, is that 500 million new people on top of the gabillion that are already there?
Absolutely. I was surprised there were that many people still to join. And then also one of the huge differences of last year, TikTok, the most downloaded app in 3 out of 4 quarters last year. So anybody with teenagers will know that.
Yes. I think it's become the way everyone seems to communicate in our house. Not me, of course. Great. Okay, thank you, Emma. We've mentioned China a couple of times. Should we be surprised there's more growth there?
Obviously, more growth. It's not the largest market by sales, but it's the best one for growth, and also for growing for prestige brands. What's interesting, though, is the rise of Chinese domestic brands. And I think that is an area that Western brands need to watch, because there are Chinese domestic brands that are investing up to 20% into R&D and developing their markets. So I'm sure it's not going to be too long before we start seeing them in other countries as well.
No, I think that's a really good point. We saw this again in our discussions on China, which is recognition and status drove a lot of the adoption of Western brands in China, as new affluent middle classes wanted to have those badges of success. But a number of things, so that's also supported, I should say, by quality, because there's a lot of trust in Western brands after years and years of good quality assurance. But as we're seeing in the West, with a lot of debates around representation and diversity in China, there's a growing desire to have Chinese products for Chinese people shown in a Chinese appropriate way. And we're not able to cover it here, but there's a lot of concern with representation. For example, accidentally using the wrong symbols or treading on cultural toes. So I think the whole days of easy growth in China, which is just opening up to the pent-up demand, are probably coming to an end, and it's going to be a much more competitive market and a two-way market as well. So it's going to be interesting to see. But again, I think a change in how things are going to be operating. And what sort of size is the market there? I mean, 70.9 billion. Just do some quick maths. It does look as if between the US and China, they are each as big as the next three big markets. So lots of growth and activity there.
Yeah.
So while we're all buying our cosmetics, which may or may not come in plastic packaging, we're also seeing a rise in ethical, sustainable, etc. concern in this sector. What did you have to say on this, Emma?
The wellness trend was accelerating before the pandemic anyway, and consumers' thoughts about the planet, the environment, sustainability have obviously increased in the past 12 months. From a beauty and cosmetics point of view, that has been seen within skincare predominantly, as people have been thinking about what products they're actually putting on their skin.
Yeah, sure.
Thinking of their skin and their skincare regimes in a different way. So this is also leading to higher price points and people moving up from buying mass market brands into buying prestige brands.
Yeah.
It's showing the importance of skincare to individuals. So skincare products now account for 42% of the beauty and cosmetics sector, which is up from 37% in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Now, Maria, you were mentioning earlier on when we were chatting about, the green premium. So will consumers pay extra for that? So what does your information tell us about that?
Okay, I think it is connected to what Gemma said. I think that it's clear that the consumer wants the whole thing to be green. Let's say we are talking. They want this clean beauty with which also means clean deliveries. Okay, so I think that most of the shoppers, most of the consumers are conscious, let's say, about the cost of this sustainability. And I think that yes, they could accept to pay this green premium to have these more environmentally friendly deliveries. But maybe it would happen it was with the deliveries at the very beginning. Everybody wanted everything for free. And it was not, let's say, sustainable. It was not cost efficient from a retailer's perspective. But I think that methods such as an annual fee, let's say, and as it is done in certain marketplaces for delivery, could work, in fact. Yeah? At the beginning, it might be,
an Amazon Prime.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
But obviously, not with Amazon in this case. And would that be something that the retailer charged, or where the consumer would have a direct relationship with a carrier? So, for example, would I have a relationship with my carrier and therefore get an upgrade, or would it come through the retailer?
I think that a mixed model could be possible. And it depends on for instance, marketplaces will charge, they can charge the provider, the supplier, the logistics or the transporters, but they can do that also with the shopper.
And we talk a lot about the customer need and desire for sustainable deliveries. But in a survey last March, 48% of customers said we're really, really keen on sustainable products, packaging, delivery. but 62% of them thought it was the retailer's problem and they didn't want to pay more for it. So we are getting, I think, a lot of authentic desire not to have waste and not to have wasteful packaging, etc. But no one seems to be keen to pay for it. So from your experience, are you finding, when you look across Europe, that the customer is voting with her money and saying, that's fine, I'll pay a premium? Or are you finding that there's still a price pressure on delivery and returns?
Okay, of course, there is still a price pressure, but the customer is more and more asking for sustainability in the products themselves, the ingredients, containers, packaging, as you said, and of course supply chains, including last mile distribution. But yes, there is a fact that to be considered is who's paying for it.
Yes, well, I know who that is in our house. But what have we missed out? Is there anything we haven't raised that we should just touch off on before our time comes to an end? We've covered green. I did want to pick up on some cross-border questions, Maria, with you about, are we seeing cross-border purchasing in beauty? Because Emma's mentioned China, a lot of which is coming in through stores and marketplaces. But are you seeing that the beauty marketplace is a cross-border one, or does it tend to be the major brands directing countries as historically we've seen?
Well, it is getting more and more cross-border. Okay, and I think it is related to all what our colleagues Emma and Laura have said before, and you and yourself. It was there is let's say break even, or let's say a point in which we have changed the traditional cosmetic sales model, that is the coronavirus pandemic, and they have even those who have been averse to making online beauty purchases in the past, they have been forced to adopt the channel. So, but when consumers start using a new channel, they really feel some uncertainty, let's say. So they stick to familiar brands, products, etc., as we said before. And this uncertainty affects deliveries. Okay, so consumers are asking for reliable delivery partners. So reliable tracking events, frequent updates on these tracking events are key, and even more for the cross-border, because these doubts are even bigger when you are purchasing abroad. So
especially if you are in post-Brexit Britain. And work out where products are, etc. So anyway, let's not don't make me cry. Thank you, Maria. Laura, have we missed anything out that you'd picked up in the report that we should just touch on before finishing?
I think the biggest thing for me is this proliferation of touch points that we're seeing, and the fact that companies that really utilize and drive insight from behavioral data do better. It's just fact. The better you know your customer, the better you can talk to them, the more likely they are to engage with you, the better you'll do. We have a client in Australia, a company called Adore Beauty, and they're the biggest online beauty retailer in Australia. And they wanted to try and replicate the in-store experience for their online customers. So the same level of advice, the same level of engagement, the same level of care and data to be given to them. So they put a huge process in place for pulling all of the behavioral data, all the little nuances, the little triggers, the little signals that somebody's thinking in a certain way, and then just provide the customer with all the data. We see you're looking at these things. Here's all the data about that for you to make your own best decision about what you want to do.
Yeah.
And it genuinely works. Their average order value went up 9%, and their conversion ratio went up 17%, because they were really listening. This is what it comes down to, really listening to what their customer was doing, even if they weren't speaking, just by seeing those nuances. So for me, that's just
transparency. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Laura.
It's so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, Emma, I know that the next big thing we'll get from you is the 2021 sustainability report. But thinking past that, what extra new or different are you going to be looking at for the update on the beauty report? Is this something that's crossed your executive desk that you didn't manage to get into this report, but you're looking at for the next one? What's sort of the so new it hasn't even been published yet?
The report has literally only just come out. It will be leaving my desk at the end of today, Ian. So
I've seen it, you see, so it's now past, so apologies for that. Was there anything that you think is worthy of more space than next year? I admit that you've already had a day to pick up on new trends.
Yeah, no, I'll be looking forward to seeing how the live streaming develops across Western Europe or outside of China, and how social media sales generally take away from other channels.
Yeah.
Or getting
I'm looking forward to whether we'll see a connection between the live streaming and whether we'll see the people formerly known as concierge, VVIP, clienteling people, and the experts are going to find a new life now as brand ambassadors, digital face of the brand. So I'm wondering, and I'd love to get anyone who's tuned in who is a frontline customer service person, drop me a note, because we'd love to have a chat. But is this the new wave now of having globally recognised ambassadors over these new channels? It'd be interesting to see.
It'd be interesting how you get a mix of that with the current influencers as well.
Yes, absolutely. So, look, fascinating. Sorry to be on the spot there, Emma, and thank you for reminding me that it's only out today. So thanks for that. And also thanks, while we're at it, to Maria, Laura. Thank you both for joining us. It's been fascinating. Really, just what a great report. So, as I said, I've read it through. There's so much in there. Let us know what you'd like covered and whether, in fact, you want an update on this in our autumn e-commerce world review as well. So that's only around the corner. But look, with a big thank you to our guests, a thank you to you for lending us some of your time today to tune in. We look forward to catching up with you again soon. And in the meantime, happy trading.
Thank you very much.